the half-life of a skill is really changing. As per World Economic Forum, the half-life of a skill used to be 30 years and it has now gone down from 30 years to 6 years. What I mean by that is if someone was really proficient in a specific skill, they can continue with that skill, continue making success for 30 years in a row till yesterday. But now, that's not sustainable. It may only land for a period of 4 to 5 years. And after that, they need to learn, relearn, and unlearn as well. We all have learn in different ways and forms, right?
Mm.
There's not a one size fit all approach. We all learn through visual aids, we learn through audio aids, we learn by reading information, we
Mm.
learn by collaborating with others. It's not a one size fit all approach, but I always say that one should be more self aware. Like you mentioned, what is your natural style? What works well for you?
Welcome everyone to Vibrant Publishers podcast. Our guest for today is Ankit Kalonia, the head of learning and development at JLL India. Ankit has a wealth of experience in hospitality and corporate real estate industries. Welcome to the podcast, Ankit.
Thank you, Nakul. Happy to be here.
Great. So our topic for today is an interesting one. It's about learning how to learn, and we've got the expert right here. But before we dive deep into the topic, I would like to ask you, Ankit, about what motivated you to make a career in this field, in the learning and development vertical.
Sure. Uh, I think it dates back to my childhood days. I was dyslexic as a child, something which I didn't knew, something which I didn't realize at that point of time.
Yeah.
Like when I was in second grade, it used to take a lot of time for me to comprehend concepts sitting in the classroom. I will take more time than the other kids to understand things and then interpret. When I used to write exams, it will take me a hard time to convert my thoughts into words and write it down.
Right.
So, as a dyslexic person, you face a lot of struggle in learning concepts, retaining knowledge. You're not very good with directions.
Hmm.
If I have to give you an example, I'll go to one location and even if I've been there 6 times in a row, even the seventh time I'll be using Google Maps.
Right.
So people who are dyslexic, they struggle with the directions, they struggle with learning and retaining knowledge and information.
Right.
So I learned about it at a very later stage in life, but it's interesting. The idea of personal development really excites me a lot. The idea of learning really excites me a lot, and because I think I've faced a lot of hard time in terms of learning new things and retaining that knowledge. This is an interesting topic for me. I think as a learning and development professional, I do a lot of experimentation with my own self. So if I can make a concept sticky to my own self, given my challenges with learning new concepts, I think I can really do it for others too. So the idea of learning and development has always excited me, and it feels great that I've made a career out of it. I have a background of spending time in operations. So my initial
Okay.
formative years, I've spent a lot of time in operations, and it was one of my manager who once, in a one-on-one conversation we were having, he mentioned that, Ankit, I see you spending more time managing operations than training people. I think every time there is an incident at the site, you're always concerned about how do we course correct it, how do we train our people so that something like this does not comes up in future. I think you should rather make a career in learning and development space rather than spending time in operations. And I think I took that advice very seriously. That manager is a very dear friend to me now, and we still remember about that time, which was 6 years from now. I think I was a novice in the field of learning and development. But over the past 6 years, I think I've really dedicated my efforts into this, and I think I've come a long way.
And thank you for sharing that. Let's talk about learning and development in the business context, and what does L&D look like in a corporate setting?
Mhm. Sure. So change is constant. If you see, organizations are facing this change. We are in the industrial revolution 4.0, the fourth version of the industrial revolution. I think
Okay.
change is a constant over here. There are new trends emerging, things that used to work probably 5 years back, you know are going redundant today. So I think the idea of continuous learning is of paramount importance now.
Okay.
Learning and development in a business context means a learning and development professional takes care of the need analysis, right?
Mm.
Identifying what are those key skills where a major part of the population within the organization needs upskilling on, and then identifying what could be the best solutions, and then bringing it to the table. It also means doing talent management, identifying who are the high potential employees who are working with you, thinking about what are you doing for their upskilling, which will
Mm.
ultimately lead to employee retention as well. It's also about how do you do succession planning, identifying those critical and high impact roles, and identifying resources who can pick these roles in future, and how do you prepare them, how do you make them ready to pick these roles in the future. It's about training and development programs, conducting workshops, conducting virtual webinars. It's
Hmm.
about creating mentoring and coaching opportunities within the organization. What learning and development also does in a business context is managing a lot of programs. And I think that's one shift that has really happened in the past, I would say, 6 or 7 years, where learning and development was looked upon as a very transactional thing. I'll give you an
Hmm.
example, Nakul. So 6 years back, we will receive a call from a business leader saying that I have someone in my team who's a key leader, and they need upskilling on thinking strategically. Can you
Hmm.
organize a one-day workshop? You know, and this person spends time in this 8-hour workshop, and we can expect some results. But I'm sure you would agree to me that that's not how learning really works.
Hmm.
It's not like a paracetamol tablet that I can give with a glass of water to someone and ask them to
Yeah.
gulp this down their throat. I think it's a long term approach. And I think what has really changed in the past 6 years' time is we're now looking learning as a long term approach, as a pursuit, as a journey, rather than a transactional exercise. So it's
Correct.
now about blended learning approach. So we at the organization level, what we are trying to do is identifying how can we make our people engage with different learning resources, which may involve inviting them for instructor-led workshops, which may involve uh, assigning self-paced e-learning courses to them, which may mean identifying a mentor which they can work with closely over the next set of 6 months' time. This may also mean identifying those capstone projects, those stretch
Hmm.
assignments, which can be assigned to the individual so that they practically get a chance to apply those learnings on the ground and they learn through experience.
Correct.
I think apart from this, what learning and development is responsible for from a business context is managing the learning management system. So it's about managing the whole platform that host these series of courses or modules. It's also about uh, partnering with the business. There's this new concept called learning partner which has now emerged. The way we used to have an HR partner, which was quite popular, the new term learning partner has coined in the past few years, which means these are people who are working hand in glove with the business leader, understanding what are those skills that will make sense in the coming years time, and what do we do now, what do we do today to upskill our people to create a future ready workforce. What are those behaviors that we see in them currently which we want them to unlearn, which we want them to undo, and what are those behaviors which we don't see them
Hmm.
currently and we want them to upskill in those areas. So I think it's a very busy job and it's a very exciting job for an individual like me. uh, and I think that's pretty much what learning and development does in a business context.
Got it. So now, you would agree to my point that learning never ends. It's a continuous process, and it does not definitely does not end after your graduation or your post graduation. But when it comes to corporate setting, w- instead of looking at learning and development as something that you just have to do to grow in your career, or something that the company has told you to do, uh, I want you to share why learning and development is important, and why this is something that should be intrinsically motivated thing rather than seeing it as just another task.
Hmm. Great. I think that's a great question. And I think if you look at it, we are in the fourth industrial revolution. What the past three industrial revolutions has given us is the concept of white collar jobs and blue collar jobs. Now, if you know, blue
Hmm.
collar jobs are jobs where a lot of manual effort is required. We're talking about jobs of a security guard, a janitor, a
Hmm.
housekeeping attendant, a technician, right, where a lot of manual intervention is required. And then there's this concept of white collar jobs, which are jobs which require cognitive ability, a job which requires thinking work, a job which requires decision making, right? So it's a combination of manual and cognitive effort which is involved over here. And I think in the fourth industrial revolution, we are living in the era of technology. And
Hmm.
in the current era, what we've seen is because of introduction of AI and machine learning, some of the blue collar jobs are already going redundant, right? Today, you don't really need a janitor staff at the airport to mop the floor. There are vacuum cleaners that are automatic and that do the job for you, which very little manual intervention required. As in, you need to fill up the detergent probably once or twice in a day, and that automatic vacuum cleaner will do the job for you. So the janitor's job is that question. The job what a security guard was doing yesterday got replaced by a CCTV camera. So
mm,
till yesterday, a security guard was standing there, and today we might not really need that security guard because there is the CCTV camera. Same goes for traffic policemen.
yeah,
If you go to foreign countries, you see this concept already quite prevalent. Unlike India, where you don't see a lot of traffic policemen on the road, they are in at the control room watching the CCTV footage and filing challans, right? Today, with the help of machine learning and AI, you know, they have the answers. They can do repetitive tasks. So the job of a cashier, the job of a executive assistant, is at stake, right? Because any task, any job that requires a repetitive sequence of tasks can be automated. What we mean by this is there's this whole new concept of green collar jobs that is emerging, which means jobs that would require a lot of thinking, reflecting, and action oriented work. So it's
mm,
about thinking, reflecting on your actions, and then doing critical problem solving. Some of the skills, and coming to your question, why is continuous learning really important? I think the half life of a skill is really changing. As per World Economic Forum, the half life of a skill used to be 30 years, and it has now gone down from 30 years to 6 years. What I mean by that is if someone was really proficient in a specific skill, they can continue with that skill, continue making success for 30 years in a row till yesterday. But now, you know, that's not sustainable. It may only land for a period of 4 to 5 years. And after that, they need to learn, relearn, and unlearn as well. And that's where the need of continuous, upskilling comes into play. The
mm,
concept of learning mindset is of paramount importance over here. If an individual identifies, uh, what do what am I really good at, and how can I keep upskilling myself in that specific area? It's not about focusing on your weaknesses, but focusing
right.
more on your strengths, something that you're naturally good at. You can feel proud of yourself, pat yours back, but then what do I do to keep upskilling in this key strength so that I become indispensable in this, and I can sustain for a very long time with this skill set.
Got it. And you mentioned machine learning playing a big role in this shift of reducing the timeline of upgrading your skills. We'll definitely get to that and discuss about AI's impact on this topic. But my next question would be, uh, what are some of the fundamental principles in how humans learn effectively?
Hmm. I think that's an interesting question. Human learns through a combination of things. I think curiosity is number one over there. If you see a child now, it's very interesting to say, how does a child picks up a language, right? I know that a language is taught in a very formal setting once the child is 2.5 years old. But how does a child picks up on what's going around them, right? How does a child make sense of the world? I think it's through curiosity, which we all should learn from a child. We make sense of this world through curiosity, through communication, and what we are doing as humans, and something which we are naturally good at is filling in the blanks, right? We are naturally good at observing and then applying those skills as well. So I think observation, curiosity, and communication play a really key role over here, and they form the fundamentals. Now, coming to learning, there are different ways how we all learn. Some of these different ways are visual learners. We have people who learn best through visuals. Think about those PowerPoint slides, those pie charts, those bar diagrams. Then there are people who are auditory learners who learn through listening, who prefer a voice over a visual, right? We then have people who prefer activities, and those are called kinesthetic learners, people who can't really listen to a lot of instructions,
Mm,
but they have to get on the field. They learn through trial and error. They have a lot of physical activity, and that's what they really appreciate. They learn by doing things. They learn by applying knowledge. We then have learners who prefer reading and writing, as in they will prefer to read through information rather than listening to it, rather than looking at visuals. And they would also like to reflect by making a lot of notes too.
okay.
We also have logical learners, learners who prefer to use logic, reasoning, and
Mm,
system. Learners who can see patterns and relationships and enjoy strategic games, puzzles, and experiments. We also have social learners. These are learners who they show strength in learning with others. They appreciate group activities. They like to work in collaboration with other learners. They are skilled at communicating verbally and non-verbally, and often display empathy and understanding of others' perspectives. And finally, we have solitary learners. These are learners who prefer to work alone in isolation, and they use a lot of self-study. They are aware of their thoughts, they are aware of their feelings, and adept at reflecting and analyzing their strengths and weaknesses. Uh, Now, there are so many different learning methodologies. And when I started gaining knowledge about how do humans really learn, most of the books I read said that, identify what is your learning style. But honestly, Nakul, if I ask you, which one is your preferred learning style out of these 6 to 7 different patterns I shared with you?
I think visual would be one on
Visual
the
would be
top.
one.
Yeah,
Great. But does that mean that you don't appreciate self study or you don't appreciate listening to podcasts?
I think I do. I think they complement with my visual learning. That's
I
definitely
love
a
that.
part of my strategy.
Absolutely, like you rightly said. So I think we all have learn in different ways and forms, right?
Mm,
There's not a one size fit all approach. We all learn through visual aids. We learn through audio aids. We learn by reading information. We
mm,
learn by collaborating with others. It's not a one size fit all
correct.
approach. But I always say that one should be more self-aware, like you mentioned. What is your natural style? What works well for you? Some of them may appreciate audio aids more than visual aids. It's important to know what your natural style is and leverage it. And I feel that for learning any skill, you need a combination of different learning methodologies. If you
Correct.
only stick to one, it's only going to become dull and mundane after a period of time. It's like going to a buffet. Who doesn't like picking up plate and picking up different food items from the buffet, where you have a dal makhni, you have a paneer butter masala, you have sarso ka saag, and you can pick a bit of each and every item. And then reflect, which one you like the most, and then go and take double helpings. Similarly, I think what we all should really think about is, any skill you talk about or any subject, it's always important for us to try and experiment with different learning methodologies, because it's not a one size fit all approach. It's something which is very subjective, and only through trial and error, I think we can get to the best style for us. And having an explorative mindset is really important here.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing those tips and different kinds of learning. And I think the key takeaway here is you've got to experiment and find out what works best for you. Combine those things, and I think practice is the biggest part here. Practice as much as you can to learn. That is what might make it perfect. Now,
Absolutely.
how? Yeah, please go on.
No, absolutely. I plus one on what you said. I think the more you practice, that's how you make any idea sticky. Unfortunately, in schools, and I'm sure you would agree to me, we've really been told what to learn, but not really much stress is given on how to learn. But I think there are so many resources available around us, and the more we practice, like you said, the
Hmm,
more the concept can be more sticky.
correct. Now, suppose a person is in an organization, maybe in a small organization or a particular organization which does not have a learning and development department yet. Could you give me some resources? What is your best suggestion for resources that they can use to learn and develop?
For smaller organizations, I think what they can really do is think about, you know, initiatives that are high impact but low on cost and effort. Something that is high on impact and low on cost and effort, and the younger population, the Gen Z in particular, really prefer is collaborative learning opportunities. I think
Hmm,
cross pollination is key over here. Imagine today's generation like to go to a Quora.com, post their question over there, and then someone around the globe who's been there, who's done that, is ready to help you. Right? Imagine you have no direct connection with that person, right? You don't have a blood connection, you don't
hmm,
have a family connection, but then still that person is ready to spare 15 minutes, write a blog out of it, and give you a response and help you out just because they've been there, they've done that, right? So it's a helpful community out there. And I think something an organization, a smaller organization, can really do is create a community, right? And create an online community where people can post their challenges, and people within the organization who are already a subject matter expert in this can help them out, right? Let's say an organization has less than 10,000 people across the globe, and imagine you create an online portal which works like the Quora.com, where you're just making cross pollination happen. How much cost does it really involve? Not much,
hmm,
I'm sure you will agree. Apart
correct.
from this, what organizations can also focus on is doing TTT. in learning and
Yeah.
development vertical, we call it train the trainer, right? Any
Mm.
organization would already have a lot of subject matter expert, which are very good in their job, but they are not very good in teaching others those same skill sets, which they might have taken a lot of years to you know incorporate it in their DNA. So it's about training those professionals to disseminate and cascade those learnings on the ground to others. So organizations can also think about doing TTT, train the trainer, with their key folks who can help in cascading those learning to the wider population. I think apart from this, what organizations can also do is there are so many learning platforms available out there, like a LinkedIn Learning, like a Coursera, like an Upgrad or an Unacademy, which have a list of professional certification courses. They can also join hands with them and identify what are those top courses out of the whole library of lists that are available on this platform and make it available to their people. It could be through sponsorships, it could be a 50-50 partnership where 50% the organization pays and the 50% the employee has to contribute, right? There are different modes that might work in this case, but a smaller organization can definitely think about joining hands with these external learning partners who already have a great platform and make those learnings available to its people.
Correct. Now, so learning and development, you said that learning requires a lot of curiosity. I've got the curiosity, but there is still a fear of failure in me, or I've got a fixed mindset. What are some of your tips to have a growth mindset and overcome a fear of failure?
Hmm. Now, okay, let's think about it this way. Who comes to your mind when you think of a successful, intelligent, and talented person? Perhaps someone like American inventor Thomas Edison, whose
Yeah.
improvements to the light bulb has made it a symbol for moments of brilliance. But
Hmm.
while Edison was highly intelligent and talented individual, he wasn't born a success, right? He did not develop the light bulb in one day or even on his own. It took a
Yeah.
long, slow process of curiosity, dedication, and hard work. So I think it's not intelligence, talent, or education that sets successful people apart. It is their mindset or the way they approach life's challenges. People either have a fixed or a growth mindset, and the one that you adopt can affect every aspect of your life.
Hmm.
Now, uh, I got this opportunity to get certified with Gallup. I'm a Gallup certified coach, and one key takeaway for me from Gallup's Clifton Strength coaching program that they offer, I learned a formula of strength. It says strength is equal to talent into investment. And there's
Hmm.
this beautiful example they use to help you understand the formula. It's like many years ago, let's say when you were a 2-year-old kid, you chose one hand over the other
Hmm.
to dedicate all your life and use that hand to write, right? Nakul, if I ask you, are you a left handed person or a right handed person?
Right-handed.
A right handed person. Same like me, a high five from my side. And if I ask you, why did you choose your right hand over the left hand? Do you have a definite answer to that?
Mm, Not really. I think during the formative years, using my right hand mostly might be one of the reasons.
Great. So in most cases, I've spoken about this with so many people out there. In most cases, people don't really have a definite answer why they chose one hand over the other, or someone who's made a conscious decision to choose one hand at the age of 2.5 year
Hmm.
old, and then made change their decision altogether when they were growing up. Right? It never
Or
happens.
using both hands.
Or using both hands. Now,
Yeah.
if I ask you to write with your left hand, can you write? Can you not write at all? Or you think you'll be able to write, but that might not be very clear and tidy?
I think the third point, not that clear.
Absolutely. And that's where the Gallup's formula to strength is all about. Strength is equal to talent into investment. Now, they say that every human is talented enough to write with both their hands, right? We are all
Hmm.
talented to write with both hands, but we made a conscious decision to write with one hand over the other. And
Hmm.
over this period of years, all that cursive writing you did on those 4 lines back in your first standard, all that writing we have done, we now can write more proficiently from one hand over the other. And that's why
Hmm.
they say, you can still write with your other hand, but because you haven't really practiced it quite a lot, you might not be able to do it very well. The concept of growth mindset is all about, you know, leveraging, thinking about how can I use my other hand as well so that if this is injured, I can still write with the other hand. The concept of growth mindset is all about, facing a challenge. where you don't have the answer, where you don't know what to do, but still having the courage to say that I might fail, but let me experiment. I'll figure out things. Let me
Hmm.
see if I have an e-learning course that I can do to learn this skill. Let me see if I can reach out to someone on LinkedIn and ask them to make be my mentor, and I can learn from them. Let me see if I can apply the concept that I read in that book. I can apply it. I may fail, I may go wrong, but let me try it out. It's about living with that mindset day in and day out. Oftentimes, I see people when they are doing something new, uh, being very crippled about it. I don't know what to do. I've never done this. I'll resort to my old mediums. It's about having a more traditional approach, which does not really works, right? Having a growth mindset is all about thinking, what can I do in this situation? I may not have really solved this problem in the past, but it's a great learning curve for me. I can reach out to someone for help. I can learn through this process. It's about being vulnerable. It's about having that courage, being more resilient to take risk and figure out things the hard way. I think that's how we all learn. So I think if someone wants to grow in today's era, having a growth mindset is the best thing. Otherwise, you may not realize that you may not really progress at the same pace like others do. Organizations really celebrate, and more often than not, when organizations say that someone is a high potential employee, they are
Hmm.
employees with a growth mindset, people who are willing to challenge the status quo, people who can think critically about a problem, people who can collaborate with others and figure out a solution, people who can do smart problem solving, people who can think creatively, think innovatively, of you know doing things or finding new norms to go about it. So I think that's what a growth mindset really is all about. And there's a lot of help, there's a lot of support one can get. My personal tip is I follow people who are more smarter than me. I work a lot with mentors. I would reach out to random people on LinkedIn and ask them to mentor me. you know but the idea is to be very clear in your ask. And I find that when you work with these smarter people, when you work with more inspiring people than you would definitely want to have a learning mindset, a growth mindset, and not really a fixed one.
Got it. Some really great points. Thank you for sharing those. Now, if you could share some, so I'll tell you, I've noticed that in this generation, and the studies have said the same, that there's a problem with the attention span, which has significantly gone down. Suppose for the student watching this podcast, if you could share some practical tips for improving their focus and concentration during these learning sessions, and not just for students, but for anyone who wants to work on these two aspects.
Sure. uh, and to answer this, I want to ask you, Nakul, have you read a great book and later forgotten what it was all about? Has it ever happened to you that you read a book and you really liked the concept, and you got very enthusiastic about it? You went on, and after about, let's say, a month's time, you're having this conversation with a dear friend. You remember slightly what that thing is all about, but you're not able to express it in words. You're not able to explain
Hmm.
it to the other person. Has it ever happened to you?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
They say there's a term for this. It's called the illusion of competence, which means that a lot of times we think that we know about it just because we've skimmed through something, just because we've read about
Hmm.
it. We think that we are competent enough, right? But then competence is a big word over here. I think being an effective learner means understanding information at multiple levels of analysis and then being able to recall it at will in order to solve problems. Now,
Hmm.
why don't we remember what we learn? I think most of us aren't taught the principles for effective learning in school, like we discussed. We are all taught what to learn, but not how to learn. Now, if you think about a student, I think the biggest problems they face is they get bogged down by details, right? Let's say when they open the chapter for the very first time, they get bogged down by a lot of details. And I'm sure if you remember yourself as a student, I think this is quite relatable to me. You would open a book and you would just skim through it and you will feel overwhelmed. Oh my God, there's so much to learn. Another challenge, another problem I think students face is they don't spend enough time with it, right? They don't spend enough time with that concept. uh, they
Correct.
don't actively use it, and it's not relevant to our lives. I think if you look at various college curriculums, I'm a huge fan of the medical curriculum, particularly in India, where if you're doing an MBBS degree, what you're doing is during the day you are studying in a classroom, and in the evening you get a chance to apply what you learned, or implement what you learned, or observe what you learned in a hospital scenario, right? So in most MBBS colleges you are learning and you're applying all together, and it happens beautifully. And I think that's the reason stickiness is there. Why? Because you've learned something, you've applied it, and then there are high chances that your brain will able to retain this knowledge, which is unfortunately not the case with a lot of other engineering colleges or other institutes where they might have some internships, but no, it's not very active, it's not working quite parallelly, so to say. So I
Mm,
think the problems that I shared, something that can really help is, uh, I think simplifying the main idea. I think when I read a concept the very first time, I first do speed reading. I think an average human brain can read at the rate of 250 words per minute. But I think if you do speed reading, and I'm not sure if you've heard about this concept,
mm,
where they say you don't focus on each and every word, but you just focus on
mm.
phrases, sentences. And if you do speed reading, I think you can easily read about 650 to 700 words in a minute, which is beautiful. It's like
Mm,
you can watch a YouTube video on 1x speed and you can watch it on 2 to 2.5x, which means
yeah.
you can still understand it. I mean, not fully, but parts of it. So I think the first thing which is important is, skimming through it and underlining the key idea. What is the key concept which, the author in this case is talking about? Even for big fatty self-help books, which may
Mm,
range from 3 35,000 words to 40,000 word, every book if you see narrows down to one or two key concepts, right? And it's about doing speed reading, simplifying the main ideas that are coming from this one, and then engaging with the material. And when I say engaging, it's not just about reading, but it's about remembering. It's about imagining like you are teaching it to a 12-year-old kid. I'm a huge fan of the Feynman technique. There's a beautiful concept called Feynman technique. Feynman, who was a psychologist who identified this. If you read something and what you do is you then reflect and review what you've learned, and then you imagine, or you walk up to a 12-year-old kid and try and explain this concept to them, which means that you'll have to take off all the jargons that you were using. You'll have to
mm,
use simple to understand language, which is comprehension, which this kid can comprehend. And they say that if you've learned this technique, if you've learned to teach back, there are high chances that you will retain this knowledge as well. And then it's about repetitive learning. It's about repeated sprints of learning. Keep coming back to that concept time and again, and identify ways to apply that knowledge on the ground as well. I think if you're able to figure out, you know, where and how to apply, for that, a student might have to create a lot of avenues for them. But I think if
mm.
they are able to, apply that knowledge, there are high chances that, it will stick to them. I'll give you an example of, you know, when I was growing up, I was not very good in speaking English. So I would make it a point to read the newspaper, one article a day, and then I'll underline one new word which I don't know. And when I underline that, I'll pick up a dictionary. If you remember good old days, it was so difficult to figure out the meaning of a word, unlike today where you just highlight it and it's so easy
Yeah.
to do a Google search. So I'll pick up the dictionary, I'll find the meaning of that word, I'll write it down in a separate diary, and then I'll give a task to myself that I will think about someone I know, this word resonates with. Let's say if it's an adjective, who in my life I know who's a role model or an example of this one,
Mm,
right? And then the second thing I'll do is I'll try and give myself a task that I have to apply it somewhere in in the presence of someone, right? So I'm going to make a conscious effort to try and apply that word at least 3 times that day. And I think that this is a great way of, making that concept more sticky. There are high chances that I'll add it to my vocabulary and use it time and again too. So I think applying knowledge is one of the most underrated things in today's world. We live in an information overload world where we are being exposed to so much of information, but I don't think we are reflecting on it. I don't think we are spending a lot of time and filtering that information and thinking, where can I apply this to make it more sticky? And sometimes it's as simple as talking about it to someone else or teaching that concept to someone else, which helps in making it more sticky.
Got it. And I guess if you cannot explain it in the simplest terms, say to a 12-year-old, it's highly likely that you yourself might not have understood it.
Absolutely.
So that's one point to keep in mind, probably. Now,
Yep.
let's talk about the trending topic of these times, ChatGPT, machine learning, and AI. How do you think we can effectively use these kind of technology to enhance learning? Do you think, what are your views on AI and ChatGPT in the field of learning and development?
I think we are living in the best time when it comes to learning through these AI tools. Today, we experience AI in everything, right? The way I look at ChatGPT is my knowledge buddy. It's my learning buddy. I still remember when I used to go to a tutor in 11th standard, and it was a smaller setting where I would be sitting with four other colleagues, and we have this tutor who's teaching us. We used to go to his house, and as an introvert kid, I had a lot of questions in my brain, which I would not really muster the courage to ask to the tutor. And what would happen in this case is because uh, the inner talk which I'm having with myself is I don't want to come across as an idiot in front of others, right? I might be the only one asking this question while the others
Yeah.
are already far ahead of me. But I realize that it's all the negative self talk that you give to yourself. The best part is with the help of ChatGPT, you don't really have to get nervous. You can simply post all those questions and get answers. So the whole concept of online tutoring and the way ChatGPT can play the role of a tutor, play the role of a coach, play the role of a mentor for you, I think is such a beautiful thing. You can literally use ChatGPT in so many creative ways, learning how to give the right prompts and learning how to leverage this tool to the best possible limit. I think one should, really be good at that. Or there are so many courses that are available that one can use. I'm a huge fan of LinkedIn Learning, and I would like to give an example how they are using this. LinkedIn Learning has come up with this concept of AI coaching, and what happens over here is uh, let's say you have a challenge, you're facing a problem in your current role. Let's pick an example. Let's say you're not very good in handling difficult conversation, and you're about to get into a meeting where you know that this conversation is going to be difficult. You are trying to influence them for a proposal, and you know that they will oppose you, right? They have contrasting views on the proposal. So the concept of just-in-time learning is there, where you need help in the next 15 minutes. You're about to get into this meeting. How do you get help? I think that's where AI learning comes into play. AI coaching, sorry. So you go to LinkedIn Learning and then you type this question, and what it does is it uses its library of 22,000 courses that are available on the platform, and it gives you the answer that in XYZ course, Peter Jackson mentions that you can use this framework to have this difficult conversation. And the way the a coach will work with you, as in they'll ask a lot of open-ended question, right? They'll give you a solution and then say, does this sound helpful? Is there any way else I can help you? How do you feel about this concept? And then you give an answer, and then again they support you in different ways. So I think it's more of a conversation today. With the help of AI, with the help of ChatGPT, you can literally have a conversation with technology, and I think that's a beautiful thing. uh, you don't have time to watch a complete 20-minute video. You can copy the link, you can paste it on an AI tool, and it can give you a transcription, and you can chat with that data, right? You can ask specific questions and get specific answers, which is a beautiful thing, which can enhance your productivity, which can make you learn uh, in the way that works best for you. I think that's a beautiful thing. So it's all about leveraging the platform as much as you can. Today, AI can help you learn. AI can help you test that knowledge as well. So let's say if you've learned a chapter, you just upload that chapter on GPT and say that, I think I've learned it. Can you set an intermediate level test paper for me with multiple choice questions? And then you respond to the questions, and then it gives you feedback on that learning. You can then you can then increase the level of the level of those test papers by saying, okay, I think I've nailed through the intermediate version. Can you now give me an advanced level test paper and give me multiple choice questions, and then you answer to that. So I think with the help of this, you have a tutor available to you, and you can leverage it the way you want, which is such a beautiful thing. I think it was never available, and I think this is the best time where it supports the concept of inclusive learning. While I know that there are people who prefer sitting with someone in a workshop kind of a scenario and doing group activities, doing a whiteboard exercise, and that's how they learn. But I'm talking about an introvert learner might who might learn in isolation, but who needs help, who's seeking for support. I think AI and GPT tools can be, great buddies for them, helping them, upskill themselves by asking uh, any question they want to.
Yeah, interesting times we live in. And I'll give you one prompt that I usually use while I come across some technical or difficult terms. I just type it on ChatGPT, explain this term to me like I'm a 5-year-old, and it beautifully breaks things down into the most simplest terms. So maybe that is one prompt the audience can use, and plenty of
Absolutely.
others that I think they should Google out. But yeah, definitely
That's a great
a plus
example.
point.
Thank you for
Correct.
sharing that, Nakul. It's a beautiful example. I'll definitely give it a try.
Great. So my last question to you is, how can we create optimal learning environments both physically and digitally?
I think that's a great question, and I'll try and answer it in two different ways. First, we let's touch upon physical environment, and I think I can say from a learning and development standpoint, how we do it in a business context is when we plan our physical workshops, we make sure that we first think about the ergonomic designs. We make sure that there is, we think about the seating inside the workshop. We think about, do we
Mhm.
have, you know, different seating formats or not. If someone wants to sit at a beanbag for some time and feel more relaxed, feel more easy, are we providing that to them or not? If someone wants to, stand at a heighted desk for some time, are we providing that to them or not? So it's about ergonomic design. I think that's the first thing. We then talk about lighting. Ample fresh light is important. So think about sitting in a full day workshop with a very dim light. I don't think that's the ideal scenario. So we try and prefer or book rooms where you have ample light coming in, especially natural light. Uh,
Okay.
Noise control is also important. So making sure that there is no background noise that really, impacts the attention span of the learners. Logistically, having a lot of water stations so that learners can keep themselves hydrated, having candies on the tables so that if they want a sugar rush and they want to get more active, they can have a candy. Making sure that there's ample stationery which is available. Having whiteboard spaces where people can go and post sticky notes during the workshop, and we can have a more collaborative learning experience. Also having
Mhm.
a lot of open space for fun and engagement where we can also do some fun activities, some group exercises that enables people to get out of their space, get out of their seats, and you know get back their attention.
Okay.
uh, in a virtual environment, when we plan learning workshops, of course the time is of paramount importance here. So it's not about planning workshops for 4 hours or more than that. When COVID time hit, we were generally targeting shorter workshops of 2 hours, but then we figured out even 2 hours seems to be a lot in a virtual setting. So we then moved to 90 minutes and then gradually moved to 60 minutes. And now it's about having virtual sessions of not more than 45 to 60 minutes. But I think the
Mm.
rules remain the same. It's about looking at technology where we can have a visual presentation. We can include a whiteboard to make a collaborative experience. Uh, Also using a technology that allows different modes of engagement like chat functionality, functionality to introduce polls and quizzes, having a lot of breakout sessions. I think that's really important to keep the attention levels intact, and using a blended learning approach, which means having a combination of instructor-led discussion, videos, learning from a peer, open sharing via chat, reflection exercise, and group discussion. I think these are rules of virtual engagement. And I think the best thing to do is, especially virtually, you have to make a lot of effort. Why? Because the attention spans are very short in comparison to you sitting in a physical environment. When you're learning over the virtual mode, you need to be engaged every 3 to 4 minutes. So no instructor-led session can take place for more than 4 minutes. You have to break the flow by introducing an open-ended chat question, or by playing a video for them, or by you giving them a scenario and encouraging them to have a discussion around that. So it's about keeping to move the pace of the session and changing gears from one thing to the other.
Got it. So create an environment before you sit to learn, because that avoids any kinds of distraction, or you know uh, helps you maintain focus. So creating a right environment is very essential for learning and development, in your opinion.
Absolutely, you got it right. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Ankit. This one was packed with insights, and I think there's a lot of actionable items that the audience can take away from this. So, once again, thank you for coming to the podcast and sharing your insights.
Thank you, Nakul. Learning as a concept is very close to my heart, so I definitely enjoyed having this conversation with you. I think some of the questions that you asked really made me thinking, and good choice of questions, I would say. And thank you for having me.
Great. Thank you, Ankit.